are live. We've
For
been talking
real.
for 10 minutes just by ourselves. But now we are live. Welcome to Startup Cities Live. The idea here is to have a moment to discuss about the network state ecosystem, uh, discuss and talk about the latest news, latest projects, special economic zones, protocols, governance tools, and everything related to the startup society movement. So if you are enthusiast or if you are a builder in the space, if you like governance and technology, I think this is going to be a great place to be in touch with what's happening and understand better what is this movement. So yeah, I'm Jean. I'm founder of IP City. We've been organizing meetups since 2023. Events this year we hosted Brazil's first pop-up city, IP Village. It was a month-long event in Florianopolis, which brought 100 people around the world, builders, creators, artists, to rethink and to prototype new governance systems, solutions. And yeah, I want to give the mic to Eric Mick to introduce yourself and share a few words.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm Eric. I'm an engineer, entrepreneur, but more recently researching network states. I'm just passionate about the new tools and the new options for society coming up. So I'm also part of IPCity, doing the research. And yeah, let's have a good conversation. Kim?
Thanks for having me, Jean and Eric. So I'm Kim, founder of On-Chain City. Been building in the crypto space for the past 10 years. Did a bunch of random stuff like helped to set up an embassy here in the UAE where I'm based, and then helped to build a bunch of blockchain stuff. And so a lot of the things that converged sent me to On-Chain City. And what it is, it's essentially building out public services for internet native citizens so that anyone can access these things irrespective of where you are in the world. And I was telling Jean and Eric that I didn't realize that we were a network state until very much recently. So yeah, excited for this conversation. This week has been hectic with the whole Nepal stuff. So I know we have a lot to cover. So let's dive in.
Amazing. So we are in good hands. I love to be around smart people talking about technology and politics. So this is going to be my favorite moment in the week. So yeah, the idea is so we are sending weekly newsletter on IPCity. For now is news.peerbase.xyz, and we are going to so this is a place where we select the most interesting news on the space. And this week we had uh, 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 a major revolution on Nepal. Basic, I think Eric is going to explain better, but was a Gen Z revolution using it was like digital and offline, online and offline, and the offline was a lot of riots, but on the online part, they were able to coordinate using Discord to choose the next prime minister. So that was pretty interesting.
It's made the round in the community because it feels like a digital tool allowed people to take down the government. And I'm sure everyone saw the news somehow, but it's interesting how it was reported in the media. I think it's important to put some context on it because Nepal is a very recent republic, less than 20-year-old, and they had a lot of issues with the recent governments. They had like 14 prime ministers in 15 years. and it wasn't really stable or great. So people were always complaining about corruption or mismanagement. And it's only recently when so clearly started from the Gen Z online, like sort of taking their anger on the rich kids of Nepal, many of which are from the politicians themselves, so kids of politicians showing their wealth online. They call them the Nipo kids, which is not just Nepal, but Nipo babies is like a term for rich kids. And they really managed to sort of anger some people to the point where the government decided to ban 26 social media platforms, which is a lot. And it's interesting how there's the story of it was for tax purposes, but wasn't really. And from there, protests started and people went in the streets. But I guess the trigger was really when they started to use force and basically killed some of those students in the streets. And that's a bit too much. So after that, everyone took let's say, the revolution path and started to be more violent. But yet, Telegram, Discord, and a lot of other tools, but mostly Discord in the end, were used to coordinate and basically teach people how to use Molotov cocktails and sort of defend themselves against tear gas, which is not the first time we see that, but I think it's the first time it was really well coordinated online. So for people like us building in a digital realm, it's really good to see. But yeah, it'd be good to see what's the next step in terms of, they chose the prime minister, but a lot of people were saying he wasn't well organized, it wasn't CB resistant, which means some bots could have been in there, people could have joined from overseas. There's a lot of limitations, which I'm sure you guys would know better how to describe.
Yeah, I think like I jumped into the Discord after seeing what was going on, and oh my God, it was such a mess. There was just a bunch of threads happening. There was one on like ZK identity, because as you said, it could have been just like it could have just been bots that all voted for this new PM to be elected. It could have been people who are not even part of the country itself. But because there was so much narrative from the crypto community as well, it spun up very quickly that they had to look into the tooling and infrastructure that was designed. I haven't touched base with them, but I believe they were going to set up like a committee to figure these things out. It just kind of made me think though, because I'm sure you can just create like a plugin bot for Discord. Sometimes I wonder if we're overcomplicating it in the crypto space. Like we have all of this DAO tooling, identity tooling, and so forth. But when the moment came to show how these things were used, we kind of just went back to the basics and the Web 2 tooling. So I thought it was interesting. But yeah, they're now exploring these things and they're trying to figure it out. And I believe they're leaning on the crypto community themselves to help get answers because no one really knows what to do. They got to this point, and it's now how do you like coordinate a digital government on a group chat? Will be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. I think the most important part is to have the energy to kick off something like that. And usually people who are going to use the tools that they are familiar with. But if you want to play this for the long time, for the long term, we are going to see the problems and the issues emerge, like CDO attacks and lack of reputation and these kind of things. But then it's going to be easier to use Web3 solutions because you're going to use to solve a real problems, not only theoretical. So I think this approach is better. You have a space to experiment, and like it's urgent, it's like latent, it's important to accelerate that in that moment of crisis. And then you see the issues emerging, and then you are solving real issues with technology. So I think this is good. For example, in Brazil, last year we have a major flood in the south, with like massive, several cities affected, and like hundreds of thousands of people underwater, water, lost everything. It's pretty chaotic. And in just a matter of days, people coordinate with WhatsApp groups, crowdfunding, maps, online maps to map people that need help, need donations, where the donations were distributed. It was like very decentralized, distributed, organic collaboration, but it was only for 2 weeks. So if we, and using Web2 technology, so WhatsApp and these kind of things. So maybe we are overthinking about the technology, but I think the major shift should be culturally, and we understand the importance of coordinating even in peace times. But I think that's my take on it.
But I feel like you're touching on the maturity of the tools, right? In Web 2, the tools are very mature. Even though Discord has been around more than 10 years, no one would think about starting a democracy on Discord 10 years ago, because there was no scale and there was no, video calls weren't even there at the time. And they did most of the decision making for the PM on an online call, real time. So Web3 is sort of in that progression of getting there slowly. And by the time everyone has a wallet, then they can have an identity, and then they can have a reputation, and we can start thinking about like how do you build a democracy around this.
Yeah, but
I wonder. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, Kim.
No, I was thinking like if I were a government, kind of stuck in old ways, I would be so scared of my Gen Z population taking down the country, the way, Nepal kind of showed. And so naturally, I would assume that this is going to be an experiment or something that is research heavy so that governments could be proactive so that this doesn't happen to their country. And it makes me think like, are we going to see more crackdown on these digital tools like Discord? Will it be a case where, um, they can just call someone and tell them to take down the Discord server or something like that because there's decentralized tool and infrastructure, and it kind of justifies the case for decentralized social coordination tools like your Carcasters and messaging apps, and so forth. Yeah. What do you guys think about that? How would you approach this if you were a government yourself?
I don't know if I can be a government. I think they've actually thought about that in Nepal, and some of them were using BitChat to coordinate locally. So it's like the Bluetooth mesh communication system, not relying on the internet. And I'm sure like there's some people probably thought about it, but it's more like, was it necessary at the time? Like since the government wasn't, I mean, it was taken down, but like people left because it's not like a government disappears. They didn't try to push too much towards censorship. And on the contrary, the fact they could elect an interim PM means that they were willing to listen to that Discord group. So there was some collaboration between the Gen Z and the government. It wasn't all just like burning buildings. I think that's where it went well, because like imagine this happening in China, they wouldn't even care. They would take down the group instantly and they would censor everyone, and probably you wouldn't even know what happens in the background. They've been planning for it
Yeah.
for a long time.
Yeah, I think
It's true.
it's important to realize also that there's governments that are like people just go and burn things down, and if they are pretty dissatisfied, and I think at least most part of governments are willing to like collaborate with the civic sector and people, and if they understand that people just want to have access to good public services and a good enough infrastructure, these kind of things, uh, they can collaborate with public and understand the dissatisfaction and the requisition, the challenges of people, and the bad governments. I think they need to realize that now we have at least two new frontiers. So it's the digital frontier and the physical frontier. So after the internet, now we have more mobility, so people can live more easily for to other places. It's not that easy to keep people within your territory anymore because remote work, because social media and all this kind of and digital money, cryptocurrencies and so on. In blockchains, you can coordinate on you can leave the place. So this is the physical frontier that has opened, and now with startup cities and all special economic zones. But also there is the digital frontier. Uh, for example, Eric is mentioned the BitChat, and there's a lot of decentralized solutions that governments can't censor anymore. So blockchains and peer-to-peer technologies, and this is kind of a new frontier to people coordinate and exit the place. Even if they can exit physically, they can move their money outside the country. They can talk on parallel platforms, not only mainstream media, and all these kind of things. So now there is a balance of power between the public and the government, except in China. China has root access; they control the internet, so it's a different story. But in other places, I think the government needs to hear more the population and provide a better service to not having this kind of revolution and riots and so on.
Have you guys ever watched that show Foundations? Though I think Isaac Asimov wrote a bunch of books on it. A lot of it is like simulation theory and whatnot. I It's very interesting that all of this is happening in parallel to all of the tooling being built, or a large portion of it, as well as the whole notion of startup cities and network states and coordination between people. It's almost like we saw this coming. Like we knew this was going to happen. And I mean, for a large portion, like other centuries, and even up to this day, it's still not, we still don't have a instant and global access to what is happening. We don't really know what the truth is, but it's very interesting to see, like, because of the asymmetry of information, how it was in the past, like governments were able to get away with a lot of stuff. And, as a society, our consciousness wasn't as high, I should say, as it is now. And it's like a natural function of being able to communicate and chat with each other. And so I definitely feel that, I don't know, uh, I subscribe to the whole simulation theory thing, but it just all just feels very coordinated, and the timelines do match up. And so the reason why I was asking, as about foundations is foundations sort of predicted the fall of various empires. And it was over, decades and centuries and, thousands of years. But because we live in this very three-dimensional world and we see time as linear, some, 2, 3 years feel relatively 10 years itself feel relatively long to us, but if you were to zoom out, there's this bigger collapse and unbundling happening in, the background, and a lot of that is literally just driven by access to technology and coordination tooling.
This was the trend all along, right? From the first stem of writing to new technologies and then computers and the internet. So maybe it's accelerating, but the trend is always to more communication, more power to the people, more bottom-up emergence of things. And so now we're at the point where it's fairly easy for anyone to realize that the governments are not really doing what they're supposed to do. The top-down approach doesn't really help everyone, and it's we're not even at the point where it's just like give me a good service as a government. What's happening in most countries is just like, please do not be corrupt. If you're corrupt, then you're gonna suffer because this is unacceptable. But I could see like in the next decade something unlock more around be actually good at what you're supposed to do and demand better services everywhere. And that's where the nomads sort of fit in the picture, where they choose where they go, and talent is sort of moving around in the world, favoring countries that are really good at providing public goods. I mean, you're in the UAE, right? So you're a good example of that.
Yeah, it comes from, like, I would say governments. Oh, I don't wanna say this without giving, like, a proper explanation, but governments treating their country like a startup. And I think Patrick Friedman talks about this quite a bit, where you really like master the citizen experience and you allow for competition at the public service layer. Because only until then, um, otherwise you kind of just like there's no incentive for you to improve your government. People are getting paid, they get a pension, and that's it. And so a lot of the emerging regions, emerging countries, they have that like really healthy level of adversity where they sort of need to prove prove themselves. And I think a lot of things, cool things are happening in Africa of like building real physical startup cities. Um, and it's only a matter of time. I see a comment here about from Zeev, there's no such thing as real startup cities without sovereign money and authority. Um, I I would say that that is true, but there's ways of doing things, and I don't think that I don't think that those ways have been figured out and implemented as yet. One thing that I love to advocate for is the notion of sovereignty as a service. Um, Like, what are governments supposed to do? They're supposed to protect and provide for their citizens, yeah? So healthcare, public infrastructure, all of the things that keep us alive and keep us safe and warm, um, environmental stuff, all of that. But they are sort of bloated right now. So when you have a government that is doing 101 things, and like 90% of them could be delegated to the private sector or coordinated with the private sector, like that is the opportunity where governments can leverage their sovereignty and say, hey, we give you permission to help us with immigration, help us with corporate registry, help us with all of these things. So now we can be a lot more capital efficient with where we place our dollars to better provide for our society. And I think that's going to be interesting model for startup cities. to look at, and I think quite a few of them are already looking at that. Sorry, I know I went off on a bit of a tangent there.
Yeah, great. I think going back a bit about the internet, my view is that we are still early in the internet. So I can explain like our perception is not quite realistic because like we tend to see things linearly and the internet grows exponentially. But if we think the depth and the amount of change in just 20 years is like insane. Like we never saw that before in human history. So uh, I'm 38, so I grew up in offline and transitioned and computers and the internet, and I thought all major cycles. I think each 5 years we have a major cycle. So computers, then web, then e-commerce, cloud, mobile, blockchains, now AI. So it's like there's massive revolutions every 5 years. And when we look to the economic sector, we saw like companies surviving and some dying, other transforming. Like every 5 years, they are transforming and updating their internal processes, and the governance sector is the same. So if we think about that, we accumulated 2 or 3 decades of massive revolutions on top of each other. That's not on the governance sector. So can you imagine the 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 size of the gap between what could be and what is the current governance system? So it's immense. So that's how I think about how obsolete is the governance system and why we need leapfrog the current, because there's no way to just digitalize some processes in the current or the democratic process. For example, we need to think in first principles and how can we coordinate, do collective decision making and collective capital allocation. These kind of things should be thought as first principles using our current technologies. And now with AI is like it's more revolutionary. So I think that's different. And I think Balazs is one of the only persons in the world that really understands what's the meaning of the internet, not as a tool, but as a new infrastructure, as a social infrastructure. So and literally a new political infrastructure to build new institutions. So I think he understands the power of this new technology and the nature of the decentralized nature of both internet and blockchains that will allow emerging new apps. So I think the internet it's massive, and there are a few cities and countries already leverage that. So Taiwan, for example, they are a very I think it was in the 90s that they became a democratic country, and they learn with the rise of the internet, like the processes to the rough consensus process to create the protocols behind the internet. So they learn a lot about the community building the internet and brought this to the country to experiment with this kind of decentralized deliberation process to govern the place, and they adopt a lot of tools, digital tools. Internet is a human right in Taiwan, so everyone has access to the internet. So I think if the country sees the powers of the internet and you leverage the tools, I think these two realities can coexist.
There's kind of a paradox in what you're saying. So let me ask you the question of, let's say you update the government to the latest technologies. By the time you implement those, maybe a year or two down the line, there will be new technologies. So you'll be outdated again. Do you think there's a point in updating the government now, as opposed to trying to do it continuously, or if we did it 5 years ago, would have made a difference?
Yeah, that's why I'm approach governance not based on territory, but based on the cloud and services. And countries should be like a launchpad for special economic zones. So we should see thousands of special economic zones within a country, and these governance compete and collaborate with each other, and then it's only in this kind of environment that we can see new ideas emerge, because without that, it's we don't have a frontier to experiment with non-consensual ideas. So there's no way to to see, for example, Bitcoin emerging within a bank. That like just too different. The nature and the technology and the incentives is completely different. So there's no way. So we need these pluralistic governance models emerging within a country, and then understand what works, what doesn't work, and then copy and let some village, like small experiments, small scale village or cities or municipalities fail, and learn and try again, the same way that companies work, not the same way, but in the same dynamic, and then evolve in a more market-based or more dynamic structure. But I don't know what your thoughts on that.
Me? No, I totally agree with the diversity of, because that's when you get new villages trying a new technology, and if it's too early or the wrong technology, then they just fail, and another one's going to take over. Also allows people who don't care and just want to chill in a farm to go somewhere for themselves. Like, not everyone has to adopt the latest technologies at all time, but it's indeed pretty sad that we are forced to live in a nation state where our identity is a piece of paper and there's no way to update that. Like, I have this luck that I can actually choose where I live, and I couldn't find a single place where my identity is on chain and I don't need to carry this weird passport with me. It's kind of missing. What about you, Kim?
Yeah, it's interesting. I like to think about it from the game theory perspective, and I guess I know I don't want to throw you on the spot, but I'm curious, how do you guys think about what is the incentive for someone who already has a lot of the power and control over the nation state? They have their sovereignty, and whether they improve or not, they still are able to maintain that. So it just begs the question, what is the incentive to innovate? And I guess, does it just come down to having a very competent leader, taken from like the UAE example and how they've progressed over the years, versus other countries that have an immense amount of resource in terms of resources, but because there is corruption at the highest level, that trickles down. Yeah, what incentive for governments to even be better?
Well, I have my own idea, but I think it's actually about status. Most, like in a traditional democracy, even if you push some amazing regulation that will help the people, there's not much recognition, and at best your name is on the low kind of thing. When you're a dictator and you really improve the level of the country, then your name is in the books. And I think we're still very basic animals, and we thrive for status, even more than money. Sort of money brings status and a lot of other things. So even if you have power and money, you might want to do something right. Also because nobody is alone in the world. You always have a family and you have a circle of friends. You sort of want this status and recognition from others. So my answer is the social layer of society.
Yeah, I think I want to mention two books. Actually, one book and another essay. One is I think everyone knows the Voice X Loyalty from Albert Hirschman, and I think what we mentioned before, that is the increasing of mobility, is allowing people to move your money, vote with your foot, and vote with your wallet, and this is kind of an incentive to governments to improve things. So because other before that, it's the only reason was like I don't want to I don't want riots or rebellion within the country. So it's kind of more like a violence dynamic. But now it's more like an economic dynamic as well. So this was, let me see here. So I don't know if you heard of the Thibault model, Charles Thibault. It was an economist in 1956, and he wrote this conceptual or theoretical idea of what's required to have competition in jurisdictions. And the key assumptions, so he mapped what is required. So this is in 1956. So number one is perfect mobility. So people can freely move between communities at no cost. Full information. People know the services and taxes in each community. Many communities. Enough diversity exists so that different bundles of public goods are available. No spillovers. Public goods in one community don't affect the residents of another. And optimal community size. Communities are large enough to efficiently provide services, but small enough to reflect the residents' preferences. So this is like completely theoretical back then, but now we are living on that. So all these requirements, these assumptions are true, and we are kind of moving in that direction of it's way easier to move, to work remotely, to bundle people in small scale, and collaborate with others, different communities. So that's kind of insane. The guy saw that and kind of is playing out over the years, and I think it's going to accelerate because if you think about the internet, it's too different of worlds. So we have, for example, ChatGPT and smart glasses and this kind of things. At the same time, there's people that don't have yet internet, so they are offline. It's at least 1 billion or maybe 2 billion people offline, and I don't know, at least half of the online users don't have access to high-speed internet. So it's pretty easy to jump in a call, and the internet is kind of not good. So we are in that phase that we need to improve infrastructure of the internet to unlock new apps as well. So whenever we reach that moment when everyone in the world will have like insane high speed internet, full coverage. I think we are going to unlock new apps that's unthinkable now, and it will help accelerate this movement of new jurisdictions, new coordination tools, and so on. So I think we are still early on the internet. Like crypto is like pretty early, but even the digital economy is pretty early because we are not there yet on the infrastructure layer. So, but we are accelerating really fast, and really soon we are going to have more, I don't know, 2 billion people online, and more in different cultures, different ideas, and more bandwidth to play around these problems.
Just to make sure, the model is called Taibout sorting. And it's very theoretical, right? It's like in perfect situation, you would have this behavior. Obviously, we're going towards that, but it's interesting how old it is. Yeah.
And the exit, voice, and loyalty also is like a very theoretical and written by an economist, and it's pretty interesting how most of his ideas are playing out now in real time. Really interesting to see these ideas.
I think we have a question on when will we see nation states voluntarily convert to a network state participants? Do you guys have thoughts there? I have some thoughts, but
it's complicated, right? First of all, you gotta define what's a network state. Then you could argue that there's already network states adopting on-chain identity and on-chain bonds. So it's sort of already happening in terms of being part of a network. So such example would be Palau, for example. But Palau, they're actually using a private blockchain. So then it's a network, but it doesn't include the population. So maybe that doesn't fit that definition. But Estonia did something that's not really on chain, but includes a lot of citizens. So does that match this definition? To me, I think what's going to happen is there will be standalone network state first, and then they will show so much promise and so much value that the nation states are going to get jealous and try to copy them, or at least emulate some of the results. And that's where we're going to see this participation from governments, which could also argue that's sort of what's happening with CBDCs trying to copy crypto. They're already adopting some of those tools. But yeah, I don't have a time in mind. I just think it's slowly happening. And like we said, we couldn't have predicted anything that happened in the last 20 years. So I don't think we can predict the next 20. And it will happen in a form that we just can't formulate now. We don't have the words to even describe what they're going to be.
Yeah. I would tend to agree with that. I think like a path to get him there is actually within that delegation function, where a government might delegate portion of its stack and say, hey, okay, you have a large community of people that could actually benefit from our service. Here, feel free to use it. You can leverage our sovereignty, kind of thing. And once that network grows large enough, then it can influence the host country that is offering this tech stack of some sort. Community becomes meaningful within that. I actually believe Estonia was had a conversation a few days ago with someone who like helped to build out the architecture for the digital government that Estonia has, and they said that they've been thinking about this for the past 6 years. they just haven't figured out how to implement it. So I think like there's a timing thing here, but a lot of that is converging now. And as Jean mentioned, we are still very much in the early stages. And with the acceleration of AI and then quantum and so forth, we might just enter into a J curve type situation that we're not, we didn't see coming.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with Ken and Eric. And I think to talk about network states is it's nice to, because it's a meme, it's easy to understand, but usually the way things play out, it's not like disrupting. It's more like a blend. So like when social media come out, come about, like everyone talked about, oh, it's disruption of mainstream media, but they quickly adapt and kind of merged with social media. And then banks again, oh, Bitcoin is going to kill banks, and they adapt. And I think nation states with network states is going to blend together, or merge in some ways, where the smaller jurisdictions, at least those who have more startup DNA, are going to leverage these ideas and connect with others and adopt Web3 infrastructure and crypto and all these kind of things, and allow people to leverage their jurisdictions to create communities that uh, at some point are going to be recognized as a jurisdiction, or probably some level of autonomy, and so on. So I think this is going to. So we are not talking about much of only technology development, but we are talking about legitimacy, and legitimacy takes many generations to play out. It's not easy. There's a reason, because the policy, the the army can, I don't know, go to your house, open your house, and arrest you, for example, and your neighbors just don't do nothing. And if someone's from the Facebook or Meta invade your house, they can arrest you. So you are not accepting that. Oh, why is that? So it's a legitimacy, even though or someone from the Solana Foundation or Ethereum Foundation, there's a legitimacy, there's a software running in our minds that allows something from the governments and others not from the governments. So to shift that, it takes a lot of time. It's decades and generations and it's good to be slow at some points, to keep the stability of a place. So I think this is take time, and for me it's important to act locally and fast to solve real problems, not think abstractly on sovereignty and so on. So if you can go to a community, bring decentralized technology and help people find jobs, or transact locally and solve infrastructure problems, or protect them against authoritarianism, give them privacy. These very specific problems, when you are piling up, it's at some point we are going to create more cohesive communities that are able to do collective actions and claim sovereignty over a few decades, I think. But I think it's nice to think about this in a more academic way. I think it's important, but I think it's more important act locally and solve real problems. That's why, for example, IP Village was very practical. So we have this insane amount of technologies. What we can do to solve our own problems here in Brazil, in the community, and in for emerging countries. So I think that should be the way to think about and frame the problem.
Have you seen what Logos is doing with the Logos Circle? Very good example of bottom-up. They've developed a lot of encryption technologies, and now they're going to the communities and asking, like, what problems do you want to solve? How can we use our technology, blockchain, encryption, decentralized storage, communications, to solve the current problems of that community? Very few examples like this.
Cool. So I think I was not paying attention to the chat, but we have a lot of messages. Nice, thanks for this message. Do you guys have any final thoughts or reflections or anything that you want to share?
I would say that I know there's a lot of crazy things happening in the world right now, but I'm quite optimistic. I think conversations like this and builders like yourself and the ecosystem is part of like that natural coordination and ensuring that once we get to that point, we have all the infrastructure and thought process to figure things out. So yeah, I'm excited to see how it all plays out and excited to be building in this space with you guys.
Nice. Optimistic too. My last word would be, if the audience knows any example that we didn't mention, or like, I think even with all the AI tools we have, we're still missing a lot of information in the world. So it's good to have more examples of digital coordination, examples of people getting together to achieve better systems. So just please share with us.
Amazing. Thanks, guys. Next week, not 2 weeks from now, we are going to talk more about. We bring more news. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things happening. So many projects, many startup cities and communities doing great things. So we want to bring these projects here and share our opinions about it. And yeah, that's it, guys. Thanks for joining us. It was a great first episode. Always nice to talk to you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Talk soon.